Hello there. Good morning. Welcome into Off the Edge Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. How do you follow up your Monday? By having a very hectic Tuesday morning. But we'll make it through. We'll talk some Alabama Crimson Tide football for the next 56 minutes and have a fun time doing it. Of course, you can enjoy the show on the Tide 100.9 app, available on your Android and Apple devices in your Google Play or App Store, respectively. You can also enjoy the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at Off the Edge 109 on all platforms. That's the best way to kind of keep up. And you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. We're doing fun things all across the board because intern M over there, Michael, and Palmer McCall, who will also usually join us on Tuesdays, both of them doing some solo work with me, off duty, off hours, and helping me out with the young man's social media game. So lots of fun stuff coming up with all that. The show always got to tell you about Alabama Vintage, Alabama VTG, at Alabama VTG on the Instagram account, where you can find the brand ambassadors. So many players representing Alabama Vintage, and you can get 15% off your order if you find their code at alabamavtg.com. And Charlie's got a wild stash there for you at 2210 University Boulevard. Regardless of what you're in store for, what you're looking for as you prep, 11 days away from Alabama Crimson Tide football, you can find something you need, whether it's one of those old throwback jerseys or college or pro, really. And there's plenty of Alabama guys on each side of that. Commemorative T-shirts, jackets, you name it. Charlie's got it in store. And if you're a big hat collector, it's the best store in Tuscaloosa for vintage hats of all kinds, all types of brands, all types of fits. You name it, Charlie's got it there for you, across from City Hall in the heart of downtown T-Town. So what I wanted to get into today, I feel like there's somebody on the Alabama defense that doesn't get enough love. And to be honest, when you've got 11 starters and you've got somewhere in the area of about, 16 guys that can rotate on the defense. I mean, we're talking about 8 or 9 guys that are contributing on the defensive line alone. So, I mean, that's a pretty high number as far as guys that provide depth and can rotate in on this defense to consistently and always keep this defense fresh. It's easy to overlook some names, right? But we get excited about who's next. We get excited about who's going to be the most dominant players and those sorts of things. And hey, I'm guilty of it too. This isn't a shot at anybody. It's just a recognition of somebody that deserves some love 11 days away from the Alabama Crimson Tide opening up against the Miami Hurricanes in Atlanta, Georgia. That's Chris Allen. We talk a lot of edge rushers on the show, but we tend to focus a lot on the freak that wears number 31, the Terminator, Will Anderson, right? And justifiably, he could feasibly be the best. We talked about it yesterday on the game. He could feasibly be the best player overall in college football this year. The stats would have to line up for him to be in contention for a Heisman Trophy or whatever, but that trophy is really not an indication of who the best player in college football was. It's who's the most marketable guy that happens to play an offensive skill position. And usually that would mean a quarterback. It's difficult for running backs now, and the fact that a wide receiver won it last year, that's an anomaly. First time in 30 years, that's not something that's normally going to happen either. So how often is the best player in college football a defensive player? How often is the best player in college football an offensive lineman? Those guys don't get enough love. And it's fair to want to focus on Will Anderson, though, when you're talking about a guy that could feasibly hold that type of recognition in college football. A guy who was going into his sophomore season with one more sack than Chris Allen and less tackles for loss, but led the SEC in quarterback pressures. That guy is a first-team All-American, justifiably so, absolutely deserves it. That guy is number 10 in the ESPN Top 100, justifiably so, absolutely deserves it. That guy gets all the accolades, and he deserves it. Will Anderson's my favorite player on the team, period. But the guy across from him helps him to such a degree that he cannot be overlooked. The guy across from him is a senior leader on this football team and provides the experience necessary to allow you to trot Will Anderson out there as a freshman confidently. Chris Allen is a vital piece for this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. I was very, very tough on Chris Allen last year heading into the season and through the first few weeks of the season. Wasn't crazy about how he was going about setting the edge, because oftentimes it didn't feel like that was really the case. Wasn't overly impressed with his pass rushing technique. I felt like weeks 1 through 4, it was the Will Anderson show, and Chris Allen was nowhere to be found. He was not a supporting actor, none of that, right? That's just what I saw. But then slowly, and then very, very quickly, as the season started to close down in the postseason, Chris Allen turned into this monster who set the edge on everybody, who was a fierce run defender, led the SEC in tackles for loss, guys, 13. His 6 sacks, by the way, because he improved as a pass rusher as well as the defense started to mature throughout the season and become what it is today, honestly. His 6 sacks were tied for 4th. I mean, what's a guy got to do to get a little bit of respect? His stats back it up. But yet, here we are in a spot where he's not even a second-team All-American. He's not included on ESPN's top 100 at all. At all. I know 10 Alabama players made it, and you're being greedy at that point. But you feasibly cannot tell me that there are 10 players or that there's 100 players better than Chris Allen in college football right now. I can't believe you. Maybe there's a tad bit of bias there, but when you really actually watch the guy play, it's not a reality that exists. There's a handful of edge rushers better than him. A handful. And one just so happens to be on his team. One happens to be in Oregon. There's a couple in Georgia. And outside of that, it ain't there. He's left off of the Draft Network's top 100 draftable players this year, which they just released this morning. 6 players from Alabama on the top 100. However, it's only from the Alabama players are included from 6 with Evan Neal to 54 with Henry To'oto'o. Nobody else is after Henry To'oto'o from Alabama. You're telling me that the best draft-worthy player after Henry To'oto'o, there's a gap of at least 46 players? I can't. I absolutely cannot. Josh Jobe wasn't even put on that thing, so I love the Draft Network, but I don't know what that's all about. But that's not a situation, not a reality that we live in. We may live in a society, but it ain't the one that everybody else is paying attention to. I know there's a lot of questions and concerns about Alabama from a national perspective, despite all the confidence that they're going to go out and do what they always do, which is win titles, which is win championships, right? But I'm not at all convinced that Chris Allen is not either a preseason All-American, at least on the second team, or one of the 100 best players in all of college football, regardless of where you look.
I mean, I have not seen the Draft Network's top 100 list or anything, so I don't know for a fact, but I did look at the ESPN one. We talked about this yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. And they had some G5 players. I'm not going to say G5 players are worse than Power 5, but I feel like they probably wanted to get them a little more representation because, you know, if the list was full of Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, Oregon,
then it'd be a real list.
It would be. Yes, it would be a real list. But, you know, I can't just say, why do you even care? It's just a list that someone made up, because then that kind of removes any point in talking about sports as a whole. But, like, you know, lists have human error
No, they do. It's not about the list. It's about the overall lack of recognition for who Chris Allen is as a football player, and the lists just are the example to that.
I agree. He's way too good not to be on the list. Maybe he's 101.
I'm not one to sit and whine about who belongs on a list and who's not. I acknowledge who's there and put my 250 words in for an article and go on about my day. Like, they're just lists for conversation's sake. And it's not about him being excluded from those lists specifically. It's about the fact that he is one of the 5 or 6 best players on Alabama's football team, and he's not recognized as such. I mean, once you get past Evan Neal, Will Anderson, Josh Jobe, and Bryce Young, and John Metchi, and Christian Harris, like, you start to run out of names that are legitimately, arguably, like a better athlete or a better football player based off of their own position or a better contributor to this football team. You start to run out of names. And I mean, there's a lot of good football players on this team. Don't get me wrong. It's just Chris Allen is one of the best on the football team. One of the best players on the best football team in college football, as determined by the AP poll and the coaches poll and everybody else. And yet we don't acknowledge that in any given way, outside of him being one of the 7 players announced as, on the watch list for the Senior Bowl, which whoop-de-doo, like, he's not getting the respect. And listen, I get it. He could shut out all that noise by going out and having a double-digit sack season and once again leading the SEC in tackles for loss and all those different sorts of things. But at the same time, it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything without, but Will Anderson. And that's not fair to Chris Allen.
Not at all.
Because a lot of Will Anderson last year was, but Chris Allen. Right. And maybe not on the same scale, because the first time you saw Will Anderson make a play in that Missouri game, you knew he was going to be an all-timer at Alabama. It was just blatantly obvious. The way that he plays is tenacious. It's not something that exists in college football today. You can joke all you want, Brian. It's a reality that he's the best player on the football team, Brian. I mean, what else do you want from me? It's the fact, though, is that there's a lot of things Will Anderson probably would not be able to do had it not been for Chris Allen's ability to lock down the other side. Because Will Anderson, as Nick Saban kind of alluded to over the weekend, has evolved into a player that doesn't just play the run on the way to the quarterback, but understands his run fits now and understands his responsibilities and his role within the defense. He had a lot of freedom last year, despite being a freshman, because of COVID and all the other things that kind of held back his developmental process from a mental standpoint, which isn't a knock on him. It's the situation, because Chris Allen already understands all those things. That's the difference.
I mean, you say it better yourself. He's going to go out. He's going to have a good, Chris is. He's going to go out and have a really good season. I think, like you said, that he's going to have double-digit sacks. I think he's going to have a lot of tackles for loss. And he's going to go prove these preseason lists wrong. Yesterday, you talked about how much you hate preseason top 25s. And there's a reason. They're just talking points. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter until he goes out on the field against Miami on September 4th.
Oh, and Saban hates him too. And
yeah.
Like, I hate
We
him.
all hate them because they're stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, half of those teams probably won't even finish in the final top 25.
But regardless, it's at least something to make a point when it comes to what because that's all it is for me. Like I said, I don't like him. I don't care about him. It's just the fact that Chris Allen deserves more, because he is an incredible pass rusher. He is an incredible edge defender. And like, to sit here and acknowledge all that and then be like, oh, well, hopefully he can play well enough to be a second-round pick. That's baloney. That's baloney. Why can't he be a first-round pick? He's got the size. He's got the ability. He's got the intelligence and the experience. Consistent improvement over a 3-year career so far, and now a 4th to close it down. and to help this team go out and repeat as national champions and help with the development of one of the best pass rushers the SEC's seen since Derek Thomas. Not comparing Will Anderson to Derek Thomas. I'm not a fool. But like the perspective of it, Will Anderson plays a part in all of that. And it needs to, Chris Allen plays a part in all of that. And it should be recognized. That's all I'm saying. We'll take a break and continue the conversation. You can jump in 205-342-9904. You can also always join us on the live streams at Off the Edge 109, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Plenty of discussion to be had. We'll talk Mac Jones. We'll talk the college football playoff, the College Football Alliance forming between the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, as well as go over the names that are on that Draft Network Top 100. All that and more here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports.
The Alabama Football Countdown Clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Hold on!
There are 11 days until Alabama football.
Dominate! I said Chantilly lace and eggshell, not matte.
Colby's interior design consultancy is floored with new clients.
Wait, what am I looking at here? This looks like plaid.
They need an admin with an eye for design and a knack for numbers.
Okay, hey, look, take a look at this. Do those numbers look right?
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Relax and recharge with all your buddies while you watch all your favorite games at R&R Cigars. They have a large walk-in humidor with a great selection of name brand cigars for all flavor profiles and taste preferences. R&R Cigars has Tuscaloosa's only whiskey bar and several big screen TVs to watch your favorite team with theater seating and Wi-Fi. So if you're looking for the ultimate venue to watch all your favorite sports, stop by R&R Cigars on 6th Street in Tuscaloosa and next to Winn-Dixie on McFarland Boulevard in Northport.
With the help of Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond, I get everyone's morning started with a smile. It has a delicious and hearty combination of the Cheerios you love, whole grain oats, and sliced almonds for an extra crunchy crunch. That's how I set the rhythm for a great day. Look for Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond in your local grocery store.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A very hot summer afternoon. The sky mostly sunny. Tuscaloosa's high at 96 degrees. For tonight, clear with a low at 74. Tomorrow, partly to mostly sunny. Just a chance of a few isolated afternoon storms around. The high at 94. I'm James Spann on the ACC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 90 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
We aren't going anywhere. Off the Edge is available in the podcast center on Tide100.9.com.
We're back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Jacob Harrison with you here. Bryant Horn across the glass. Michael Bronner interning on the show today. Got to peek around the corner. Got to make his presence felt. So, big news for today is that LSU will require back sports, which is the fun way to say it, to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, as well. That or a negative COVID test within 72 hours if you are to attend the game in Death Valley, regardless of what game that might be, and that children between 5 and 12 would have to wear masks to attend the game. I know there's a lot of opinions around that. I don't care to divulge into all that. I will say that it is something to consider if you're Alabama. That's all I'll say, simply because of what our vaccination rates are and what the hospital situation here in the state is. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, there's no opinions here. It's something to consider. I got a job to do as a sports analyst, not a job to do as somebody that dives into something that's been made political despite not needing to be that. So that's the news. That's what I think about it in the quickest, nicest, non-difficult forming situation. End of discussion. LSU. There you go. Back to something more fun. The Draft Network Top 100 was released this morning. If you're not somebody that pays attention to the Draft Network, since they're not a direct competitor to us, I would highly recommend getting your draft news and analysis from them. They are some of the smartest dudes on the planet, and it's 100% all draft all year. It's not. I have no reason to endorse them other than I really, really enjoy their content. And as you know, during the spring, any of you, I'm the biggest draft nerd this building has ever seen. So as we get closer and closer, you can look at me like you're going to challenge that, Michael. It ain't a reality. But that's my feelings on them. That being said, 6 players from Alabama on the top 100. And as I mentioned, Josh Jobe ain't even on it. Little flabbergasted by that. I know there's probably 4 or 5 cornerbacks that might be ranked ahead of him. But that doesn't mean that he's not somebody that could be a first or second round pick either. So I'm a little weird on that. But looking at who is on there, some of them were also on the ESPN Top 100. Of course, Will Anderson not eligible for the NFL draft, thank goodness. But Evan Neal comes in at number 6. He is the top offensive tackle ranked on this thing. John Metchi is the second wide receiver behind Chris Olave at 18. And here's the name, right? Somebody who has created that value for himself and just has to take advantage of the opportunities before him and play out the season. He's a first-round pick. He's a millionaire and got nothing else to worry about for the rest of his life. Jahlil Billingsley, rated as the top tight end in the top 100 for the Draft Network. Like I said yesterday, all the things that follow Jahlil Billingsley's name in a press conference, I think is more of a stern, keep it up. More of a stern, you're on the right track right now, keep doing it. That's the way I interpret it. I'm not saying that's exactly what Nick Saban is saying. Maybe Jahlil still needs a couple knocks in the head. Who knows? We're not in the building. We don't know, right? Most of the insiders I know just kind of, taking what they understand from what Saban is saying, and that's the way I interpret it. Because if it were that serious, Jahlil would not be at practice right now. Jahlil would not be taking reps with the twos, as Nick Saban said, working his way back up the depth chart. I don't think he'll start week 1, to be honest with you, just to continue that punishment, to continue to, put it in his head. Sometimes a little tough love is the way you got to go, especially when you're talking about dictatorships. Hilarious to me. But with Jahlil, it's the talent is there, obviously. The value is there, obviously. Just give yourself the opportunity to get on the field and do what you do, because what you do is better than anybody else at your position, save maybe one, depending on the opinions of those that scout tight ends, in Jalen Weidermeyer down at Texas A&M, who's more of a traditional build tight end, whereas Jahlil is kind of that, he can block. It's not that he's not, but that kind of guy that fits into that mold of what a modern tight end is when you look at guys like Kyle Pitts and the such. He doesn't play like Kyle Pitts. Don't anybody expect that, but that mold of modern tight end. At 35 is Christian Harris. I love all the love that this guy is getting. First year, kind of having to be in that difficult spot when both Dylan Moses and Joshua McClellan went down, and he's got to step in. Macmillan, I'm sorry, when Joshua McMillan went down. Christian Harris and Shane Lee both have to kind of step into that spot with a freshman nose tackle in front of him as well with DJ Dale, and they all struggled. They really did. They all struggled. Wasn't a great defensive year that year, but hey, I mean, injuries happen. There wasn't much they could do about that. But he has evolved from a guy who started as a wide receiver and defensive back prospect in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and has turned into one of the best linebackers in the country. He's the second-ranked linebacker on this list, and with Henry To'oTo'o there to help him and keep him as a will linebacker, playing the weak side and chasing everything down with his speed and his agility and the athleticism that he brings to the talent to the table. I've seen him in many first-round draft mock drafts, the way too early mock drafts. So exciting to kind of see where he heads in that direction. Jordan Battle comes in at 43. I was a little bit surprised to see that. He's the 4th ranked safety, and all the other safeties ranked ahead of him are in like the top 20. So there's a big safety draft, of course, that doesn't determine, who's a strong and who's a free. Jordan Battle, clearly a strong safety. He could be the best strong safety of the bunch. He could be the second strong safety of the bunch. That's neither here nor there. I'm just excited that he's getting the recognition that he deserves, being a leader on this team and being a guy that is a throwback strong safety, a guy that will knock your block off and make you think twice about coming over the middle. He's got to work on doing that legally so that he doesn't get ejected from more ball games because of the targeting rule. You don't have to like it. That's the reality. That is something that you do have to work on as a strong safety in today's game. You've got to be aware of where your target box is, and sometimes just hope the wide receiver doesn't duck his head. Coming in at 54, the 6th and final player on the Draft Network Top 100, Henry To'oTo'o is the 3rd ranked linebacker on that list as well. Excited to see how his season develops. Again, going back to Christian Harris, Henry To'oTo'o being a 6'2", 225-pound Mike linebacker is just bizarre to me. I think he'll probably fit more of a will linebacker in the NFL, just given his size, because in the NFL you do see more, 235-pound linebackers, that sort of thing. It's just guys with more girth and whatnot. But regardless, it's good to see that he's going to get that kind of recognition. It helps that, being at Alabama and playing on this kind of defense, that can help your value. But you've still got to be the guy to go out there and make the plays, right? You still got to show that you're one of the best on the best team. There's been questions about his coverage skills. There's been question about his ability. I've looked at his ability to get off of blocks, and that's been a big concern of mine. Not big, it's just a concern. He's a great football player regardless. He's got value for himself, and there's plenty to be excited about when it comes to these players and more. That being said, kind of weird, right? Over the past few years, when it comes to Alabama and draft status and draft stock, we're used to going into seasons with a lot of guys with first round grades, and that doesn't appear to be the case this year. Despite all the depth on the defense, the draft grades appear to be kind of light and shallow. I think that'll change clearly by the end of the year. I think Chris Owens will work himself into kind of a conversation of a top 100 player. Emil Ekiyor work himself into that conversation as well. Congrats to him, by the way. Another guy that gets overlooked despite all the work he puts in. Missed one assignment and one sack and allowed one sack last year in like 900 some odd snaps. That's why he was a second team All-American. But he should work himself into that conversation. There's a lot of guys, right, that can help themselves, especially on the defensive side of the ball. As I said, Chris Allen left off of this list. There's some defensive linemen. When you look at Fedarian Mathis or you look at LeBron Ray, if he's able to get on the field and stay healthy, his value skyrockets. He just needs that one healthy season. You look in the back, and a guy like Daniel Wright, who will need a good season when he's in rotation there with DeMarco Helms, who's currently hurt, by the way. And Daniel Wright can kind of take advantage of that situation, have a good Senior Bowl, might be able to work himself into an early 4th rounder or so. But there's plenty of guys. Like I said, Josh Jobe, Chris Allen being left off of this thing kind of indicates that there's some question marks around some of these guys, despite Alabama having the best defense. But I think by the time we get to next spring, which we are clearly getting way ahead of ourselves, but by the time we get to next spring, a lot of these guys should be in a position to make a lot of money, and that's exactly what they're here for, right? Right? We ain't here to play school. We're here to get to the NFL, right? We'll take a break, continue the conversation, 205-342-9904. If you want to join the show, you're more than welcome to. as well as on the stream chats as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at Off the Edge 109. More to come here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports.
When you're ready to buy something, the first thing you do is go online. But buying a home is different. You've got loan applications, pre-approvals, competing offers, the list goes on. That's where a Realtor comes in. Realtors have expertise and local knowledge to give you a competitive edge that a search bar just can't. And in today's market, an edge is what you need. So when you're ready to buy a home, the first thing to do is make sure you have an agent who's a Realtor. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
You're always up for some fun with the family, so you order the essentials, a new board game, some baking supplies, and even a new projector for outdoor movie night. And with the Bank of America customized Cash Rewards credit card, you can choose to earn 3% cash back on online shopping, which could increase to up to 5.25% as a preferred rewards member. Rewards which you can put toward an extra treat that everyone will enjoy, like an old-fashioned popcorn machine. Visit bankofamerica.com/more rewarding and apply now. Copyright 2021 Bank of America Corporation.
Whether you just found it or lived there for years, you'll never forget that feeling. It was something that made you realize this house would become your home. And since there's no place like it, it deserves protection just as special. So talk to a real person, not a website. Call your Allstate agent, Andrew Kniffer, today at 205-722-9201 or find us on Facebook, Andrew Kniffer Agency. Once again, you can reach us at 205-722-9201. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt?
I owe the IRS $37,000.
Get ready for a toll-free hotline. Take advantage of new IRS tax forgiveness programs that may protect you from IRS collection agencies. They have the power to garnish your wages, put liens on your property, and levy your bank account. Civic Tax Relief can help protect you from the IRS.
Civic Tax Relief basically represented me against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, I didn't owe the IRS anything.
Find out about the Fresh Start program that is now available through Civic Tax Relief. Civic Tax Relief's special tax hotline can help you discover all the relief programs available for free.
I would recommend anyone who has a tax problem to contact Civic Tax Relief.
Just call 800-24-4522. 800-324-4522. Don't wait. Call now. 800-324-4522. 800-324-4522.
You're listening to Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
We are back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. It's the second round of NFL cuts today. Always a crappy day, right? You just look down the NFL player cuts tracker and just pray you don't see any Alabama names. Unfortunately, we've already seen two today. I, of course, Tide109.com. After the final cuts are announced, I'll have all the information on all the Alabama players who have been cut. But today, so far, Andre Smith, who has been in the league for such a long time, despite being considered at this point by so many, being the third overall pick by the Cincinnati Bengals, I want to say 2009, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was Nick Saban's.
He was absolutely Nick Saban's first round draft pick at Alabama. It was just a matter if it was 09 or 10. I'm not real sure. But either way, multiple stops with the Cincinnati Bengals and multiple stops with the Ravens. He's had an incredible career so far. Would not be shocked to see him land with a team that needs some depth on the offensive line, or maybe encounters an injury. Looking at you, Chicago Bears. Looking at you, Arizona Cardinals. I assume is that why you wanted the mic?
No, I was just gonna say I had a funny story about Andre Smith.
Oh, let it go.
So 2008, I think it was. I got a media guide for my parents, and it said signs. It was signed to Bubba from Andre Smith, and apparently they put down a bunch of media guides for Andre Smith to sign, and they just said, sign it, just a bunch of generic names, stuff like Bubba. He goes and signs the entire stack to Bubba from Andre Smith. So I have one of my first media guides when I start collecting them for Alabama. It says to Bubba from Andre Smith.
Well, there you go, Bubba. Enjoy your media guide. Damian Square, who has spent, I think, the past 7 seasons with the Chargers. He signed as a free agent this offseason with the Cleveland Browns, but his time with the Brownies has come to an end. Again, the cuts down to 80 on NFL rosters are due at 4 p.m. Eastern today. So I would not be shocked to see more names from our Bama pros on the way here this season. And by the way, speaking of Bama pros, as we get closer and closer to the NFL season, as we get closer to football season in general, very soon I will have out, the definitive all Bama NFL team, going position by position and, making up an entire NFL team based off of, the players available from the Alabama Crimson Tide. That will be on Tide 100.9 shortly, but also coming very, very soon with the start of the season will be once again our Bama Pros of the Week. It was a series that I did last year. Derrick Henry won about 7 of them, ended up winning our MVP award as well. But each and every week, I give you who had the best game of the week as far as Bama Pros go. And, also you had to win. First of all, like the criteria was your performance had to be good enough for your football team to win. Therefore, Calvin Ridley didn't win a single one last year, despite being probably the second best Alabama Crimson Tide pro football player last year. But all that being said, we'll continue that series again this year. Hopefully COVID doesn't kind of derail the season in any way, and I can have those on Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays. But again, something for you to enjoy over at Tide100.9.com, and know that you will get it every single time at the same time and have content for you that you can enjoy and keep up with the Alabama Crimson Tide players in the NFL. Because I know that's something that we really care about. It's something that I strive to do a good job of. So why don't we continue to do that with Mac Jones, who you can also read about at Tide100.9.com. As I broke down kind of the situation there, the Ryan Fowler with the game also had a guest on yesterday who spoke about it, and that interview is embedded within the article. So more content for you as well on that front. But Mac Jones is getting an opportunity, and an opportunity that he kind of needs as far as this quarterback job goes. And Bill Belichick kind of said as much. If the player who is the incumbent cannot prove that he is substantially better than the backup, or if he becomes unavailable, then the opportunity for the backup to win the starting job becomes an option, becomes an opportunity. And really and truly, with Mac Jones being in this spot, Cam Newton not being at practice, it being a joint practice, so you definitely want to see how the game plan kind of goes through between the joint practices that start tomorrow, right, Michael, with the Giants?
That is correct.
Yeah. So you've got 2 practices with the Giants, 2 or 3, and then on Sunday you play. You want to kind of see the development throughout all that process and then put it into action on Sunday. So Belichick hasn't said one way or the other if Cam Newton is going to play on Sunday, but you would assume likely not, right? Being away from the team that much, missing that much practice, the fact that he has already gotten less than half as many game reps as Mac Jones anyway, this is an opportunity to kind of see what Mac Jones does with the number ones. That being said, you could be in a situation similar to the Bears, only not quite as vocal, where the Bears have named Andy Dalton the starting quarterback. He will be the starter week 1. There is no competition. It does not matter what Justin Fields does, though. If you're interested in that game, Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback against the Tennessee Titans in Nashville this week. So it's an opportunity to see Justin Fields with the ones, but it may not be really an opportunity to see if he can win the job because there's no competition there. In New England, it sounds slightly different, right? It sounds like there is a real competition, and Mac Jones had an incredible practice yesterday and had a great practice today where he led 2 touchdown drives, and he's getting all of the starter reps. He doesn't have to split them with Cam Newton, or he doesn't have to have a weaker share with Cam Newton. There's an actual opportunity there for him to actually win this job. And there's a lot of people that think he could win this job by week 1 because of this situation. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if that's really the case, because first of all, Michael, you've kind of pointed this out. This team gets in the red zone. They don't let Mac Jones throw the ball. And it's bizarre. They also, first game of the preseason, get the ball in scoring range around like the 30-yard line, and they go ahead and switch the quarterbacks because everything is protocol with you guys. So it's, to be fully honest, I don't think it matters how good Mac Jones looks. And going up against the Giants, he's going to look good. So it's an opportunity. If you want to see Mac Jones look good in a Patriots uniform, then, check him out against the Giants this week. He'll be playing with the ones that'll have a serious opportunity. But overall, when you're really, really looking at it, I think Cam Newton's still the starter for this team. What you got, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like, I think it's less of an open competition than this whole thing would have you believe.
Right.
Obviously, like the whole thing, Bill Belichick's not going to name a starting quarterback before he absolutely has to. So I think, obviously they're shrouded more in mystery than Matt Nagy and the Bears saying Andy Dalton's our starter. I don't really think Mac Jones has at this point with how Cam looked in the week 2 preseason game. Yes, Mac is getting more reps, but honestly, I think that's more telling in itself that Cam is only playing the first quarter. That's usually what happens with starters. And, so it's a lot easier to bench Cam Newton if he's playing bad in the regular season than it is if you start Mac Jones, than it is to bench Mac Jones. You know what I'm saying? So, like, my thing is, I really do believe that there's no chance that Cam Newton's not, barring injury or COVID or whatever, I don't think there's any chance that Cam's not the starter week 1.
No, and I fully agree. But at the same go, talking about earlier with the LSU situation, you look at Cam Newton's situation. I know it was a misunderstanding. But had he been vaccinated, there would have been no misunderstanding to be had. And then you can kind of look across the division and see what's going on with the Bills right now. You don't want to be without your best players because of something that's preventable. That's all I'm saying. It's a sport. It is what it is. Alabama's at 90% vaccination rates across all athletics. Just one player away with the football team. The last we heard, that was quite a while ago. Take the advantage. You get to play the game. You ain't got to. So if you feel like you ain't got to take the vaccination, you ain't got to play the game. You don't get to play the game. Just a little common sense logic here from you. That's what I try to give you without opinions on that kind of discussion. But nonetheless, I think Mac Jones has an opportunity to look really good. But I agree with Michael, who is the resident Patriots fan around here. One of the many. We have way too many Patriots fans around here. But regardless, Mac, I still fully expect will be the starter by the end of the season. Cam still doesn't look like the original Cam. He's still been up and down. He did look very, very good against the Eagles, but so did the entire Patriots squad as they went to a 35-0 victory. So all things being put aside, Mac Jones, opportunity to look good, opportunity to shine and make a case for that first, for that starting quarterback gig. But don't be surprised if Cam still walks out against the Miami Dolphins week 1 and is the starting quarterback. But don't be surprised equally if the final game of the season against the Miami Dolphins, it's Mac Jones versus Tua Tagovailoa, who's having a great camp too, by the way. So Bama pros getting it done here in the preseason. Hopefully we don't see too many names on the NFL player cuts tracker today. When we come back, a couple of thoughts on the College Football Alliance between the Pac-12, ACC, and Big Ten. I know we kind of closed out with some yesterday, but I've got a few more thoughts on that weird situation and how this alliance, it's really going to benefit the SEC. That and more here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9. You're on for Alabama Sports.
Benito's line cook just threw in his kitchen towel.
This order needs to go out right now.
He needs to find help before his customers are left waiting.
So sorry. We'll be right with you. Who's got table 6?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. With Indeed Instant Match, we immediately show you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed meet your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Don't miss a play at the Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Your front row seat to all the action. Place bets on all professional and most college sports at the counter, kiosk, or on your phone. Then catch the game on one of our 20 big screens from the comfort of the newly remodeled Timeout Lounge. Plus, the PRR Sports app gives you access to live, in-play sports betting. Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Be more than a fan. Be a player. Must be 21.
Ask big.
Have you seen our artisan-created diamonds? If you've been in a room with one, you can't miss it.
Tom Osmond from Fincher and Osmond.
It's a diamond like I've never seen.
And he's seen a lot of diamonds.
Ask big.
At Fincher and Osmond, you can put artisan-created diamonds side by side with mined diamonds. When you see it.
More importantly, when she sees it.
FincherandOsmond.com.
McFarland Boulevard between Edgar's and Local Roots.
If you're a homeowner or business owner and need glass installation, sales, or repair, call 345-3511 and talk to the glass pros at Alabama Central Glass. They specialize in beveled mirrors, window glass, furniture tops, insulated glass replacement, storefronts, shower doors, tub enclosures, and acrylic. Alabama Central Glass also has vinyl windows, and they offer residential window repair. Call 345-3511 or visit the Alabama Central Glass showroom at 3878 Greensboro Avenue, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A very hot summer afternoon. The sky mostly sunny. Tuscaloosa's high at 96 degrees. For tonight, clear with a low at 74. Tomorrow, partly to mostly sunny. Just a chance of a few isolated afternoon storms around. The high at 94. I'm James Spann on the ACC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 90 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Follow Off the Edge on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for live streams and instant analysis. Off the Edge with Jacob Harrison continues.
About 5 minutes to go here on Off the Edge. So I'm trying to formulate an actual real opinion on this alliance thing because I still just don't understand the benefit of it. And I'll be honest, I've ripped. I appreciate the fascism and the dictatorship, right? But regardless, I've ripped a column from this particular writer before, but he actually, convinced me of on this one. I won't name him because I don't, want to do that, but I'm sure if he were listening, he'd know that I've ripped one of his articles before. And I will be fair. I really enjoyed this point out of this column concerning this particular topic, because when we're looking at this alliance thing, and every report says this really doesn't have anything to do with money, it has everything to do with scheduling in the college football playoff, then why the hell would you want to fight having more playoff spots? Why would you do that? Because consider this, from Bama Online, the SEC will be pleased to play its hand against any alliance bluff. If the college football playoff remains at 4-team affair, the SEC would still get at least 25% and possibly 50% of the slots. If it were 12 teams, it could get 2 teams probably every year, maybe 3, but 3 would still only be 25%. You're not going to get to a spot where the SEC is getting a ridiculous amount because of the way the cards fall, right? This is still something where folks have to decide who gets in, and 6 of the spots go to the best conference champions, and we just killed off a Power 5 team, or Power 5 conference. So what are we expecting out of that? Well, maybe you change that rule a little bit, but even in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to face a situation where Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, and Auburn all make the playoff in the same year. It would not happen because they all play each other. There's zero reason to even acknowledge the idea of something like that happening. Now, could you feasibly get Alabama, Georgia, and the team that was left out of the college football playoff, or excuse me, the SEC championship, whether that be an LSU, an Auburn, or a Florida in that situation with Alabama and Georgia playing in Atlanta? Sure. Is that the end of the world? Doubt it. Because at the end of the day, and maybe you're looking into the future, right, with Texas and Oklahoma, and you're saying, oh, well, they have more teams. That doesn't mean you get more playoff spots. That doesn't mean it's any easier for any of those teams to even go to the playoff in the first place, regardless of how the SEC redistributes, its programs into divisions or into pods or whatever. There's no feasible way to expect that the college football playoff, simply with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC, becomes more exclusive with 12 teams than it was with 4 teams. If I'm the Alliance, if I'm any of those programs, then I'm fighting like hell to get even more spots. More the merrier. Because the more spots there are, the more opportunities there is for our best football programs to get put on a national scene. And if it's about scheduling, if you want to fight being able to schedule the SEC, then have fun losing Clemson. As we talked about it yesterday. Who's Clemson played the first week of the season? Georgia. Who have they opened seasons with before? Texas A&M, Alabama. Come on. You're going to lose Florida State, Miami too. You keep playing around. You don't fight the SEC. You don't get in the cage with the gorilla, my guy. It ends poorly. Crazy Yankees. That's all we got for today. The Jay Barker Show is coming up next from noon to 2. Ryan Fowler takes you home from 2 to 6 with the game, as well as the extra hour on Alabama Tradition. Plenty more to get into throughout the week. We're 11 days from Alabama Crimson Tide football. I'll be with you tomorrow at 11 a.m. as well. For Bryant Horn, Michael Bronner, Palmer McCall, I'm Jacob Harrison. This has been Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Thank you for listening.